about what's not in those news stories. Where is the geographic stability in Syria or the instability at this moment in Syria?
Well, I have to say there's very little stability anywhere in Syria, in any geography. There are areas that are still controlled by the regime. I would say that they are more stable than most of the rest of the country. Most of the rest of the country is either under the control of militias that have their own agenda or is being competed over by different militias as well as by the regime. So stability, I think, for the majority of Syrians and the majority of the territory is a long-distant memory.
So if that is the tableau that you set for Syria this morning, what will you listen for from President Obama or President Putin about a new U.S. policy in Syria?
I think the key thing will be to listen to President Obama rather than President Putin, and to look for areas where he believes or he implies there are possibilities of cooperation with Russian forces in targeting Islamic State. I think it will be very difficult for the President, and I suspect that he has no intention or desire to suggest any further cooperation with Russia in Syria, because the end games are so different.
Mr. Putin will go to great length and great pains to try and appear like he's restoring that relationship with Mr. Obama. Will he bite?
I think, as I say, I think the US President will want to take what he wants out of it and make very clear what the dividing lines are, and make very clear that there are areas with which he cannot compromise and has no wish to compromise with Putin, not least on Ukraine.
But will that be interpreted as a success for Vladimir Putin? I'm trying to understand kind of, you know, it's a fine balance.
Well, I think interpreted by whom? Interpreted by the Russian media? I think almost everything he does will be interpreted as a success. Interpreted by Western powers, I think there will be concerns that he has made a point that is heard by rather more governments at the UN than they would really like. And I think we will see over the next few days and weeks a sort of counter-argument being made in a number of different capitals, perhaps beginning at the end of this week when Putin meets Angela Merkel.
Will they talk about China? And actually, is the question there, we again see a little bit of a rapprochement between the US and the infrastructure bank, which caused such a headache in the last couple of months. Does that have an impact on Vladimir Putin's thinking?
I'm sure it does. I think that his goal at the UN General Assembly over the next few days, as I say, is very much to re-establish Russia as a geopolitical actor, a major actor on the world stage. And he will, I think, try and avoid getting dragged into the detail of things like the infrastructure bank, while perhaps using slogans that suggest that he has common cause with the Chinese in the way that the Chinese are presented and attacked by the West, but not, I think, to get, say, dragged into the detail of how the international financial system works.
Crispin Hawes, are you expecting the National Assembly to be a huge show, right? Last time we had Nikita, you know, Mr. Shukrov actually, I think, branding a shoe, right, to make the point that the U.S. was the enemy or wasn't a friend of Russia. What do you expect Mr. Putin's tone to be?
I think it will be assertive. I think it will be aggressive where it comes to the US, but with a tone of conciliation. He wants to give the impression that he is a potential partner. And I think that's the message that he's trying to get across, is that Russia is not the enemy. Russia is a partner, should be coordinated with, rather than opposed sort of by rote, as it were. And as I say, there is an element of the audience in the General Assembly that is willing to hear that message.
All right, Crispin Hawes, thank you so much for joining us today. Middle East specialist from Teneo Intelligence. Now let's get some more of Bloomberg's top headlines with Manus Cranney.
Fran, thank you. President Francois Hollande